No drinks in the chapel, please.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome. Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Shabbat Shalom.
And Elias and Michelle and Eliza and Dan, it's wonderful to be with you this Shabbat morning. Let's begin by thanking God for the gift of learning Torah together, and then we'll check in. Page 63. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. V'hamarevna Adonai Eloheinu b'divrei Toratcha v'fi amcha v'Yisrael. V'nihiyeh anachu v'tzatzaenu v'tzatzaei amcha v'Yisrael. Kulanu yodei shemecha v'lomdei Toratecha lishma. Baruch atah Adonai melamei Torah le'amo Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol hamim, v'natan et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten Torah. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. First of all, I just wanted to unpack last night with the group. I thought it was just so awesome. Dan, thank you so much for doing the service here in Gant Chapel. You know, God made a miracle here, Nes Gadol Hayapo. Ordinarily, we get 11 people, if we're lucky, to a GAN Friday night service. Last night, there were 65 distinct views, so thank you for making that happen.
My pleasure. The congregation was into it.
Yeah, and Elias and Michelle and Eliza, the service, Shabbat Alive, with Governor Baker, it was just truly your finest hour. You sounded like angels. Such a gift, such a privilege to be inspired by you. I wanted to just, you know, we're in this space every morning and every night with our congregation praying, and people just know us as clergy team. But I wanted to actually just pause for a second and check in before we get to our sources, what it's like for you as a human being and a rabbi or cantor to be working here during the midst of a pandemic. You're also human, you're also people, you also have families. So I'm going to start over here with Michelle on my right. You know, Michelle, you've got a tough act over here. You're leading a congregation. You've been leading the effort at figuring out on the clergy end how to deal with the pandemic. You've been consulting every day, multiple times a day, with our infectious disease experts, trying to figure out how can we serve our people and be here for our people without endangering our people. And you're on the phone with Massachusetts General Hospital 3 times a day, every day on that. You're always game planning 3 steps ahead. What if we get shut down? What if there's a lockdown? How can we still? And you also, you know, have 4 kids at home now, and a husband at home, and you've got a lot going on. So how is all that working out for you?
So it's an unprecedented moment. These are uncertain times and unprecedented times. And I think being here in the congregation and having my congregational family to care for and care about has actually been filling my life with meaning. And I see that the people who are here now with us and at so many other times, what we do matters, and so that matters to me.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Elias, you posted that beautiful link on Facebook with you and the boys at the piano singing. You've got 2 sons at home now who are home, and Lorena with a big job, and you with a big job. How are you coping through this pandemic?
So thank you, Wes. So first of all, I want to go back a little bit to the live streaming and tell a little bit about where we stand. So about a year and a half ago or something like that, we thought that it could be great for our synagogue to have the equipment and to start debating among ourselves about live streaming and live streaming services. And you know, we made some progress and here and there, and then we had some different views about it, you know, among ourselves. And but you know, the system was ready. We've been doing it, you know, the rabbi's sermon, and occasionally, you know, Alice and I did a Gershwin concert in November, and there was a snowstorm, so a lot of people took advantage of that. But this really caught us off guard. It's not that we did a lot of testing before going live. So first of all, we want, you know, although this technology is fantastic, we want to apologize to everybody because we know that there has been a lot of difficulties and a lot of technical difficulties. People try to, you know, to connect with us through our website, but you know, we'll get there. We'll get there. So thank you for being with us. So on my end, you know, adapting to this new reality, In a way, it feels like we have less congregants here, but we are working more and more every day. And adapting to this new reality, on my end, I'm, like then teaching all the Bnei Mitzvah students through FaceTime from here, and that's also something to adjust. And then at home, it's also a new reality for everybody there. My wife is working from home, the kids are homeschooled and, doing through live streaming or, different types of systems, and it's difficult. It's difficult. And juggling here and there, it's a challenge. But, we'll get through.
Elias, what was it like for you last night doing a service with the governor of the Commonwealth there?
I don't know. I was thinking. I was talking to somebody else and mentioning that maybe you may remember this better. Like a year and a half ago, something like that. We have Elizabeth Warren here.
I remember
Shabbat.
that. Yes. I have a vague memory.
Yes,
it's
I don't
hard
know.
exactly to remember the 10,000 emails I got. All
right.
I have a fake memory.
So, but
thanks for bringing that up.
Remembering that, it's like there were 800 people here in the sanctuary. I remember people seated on the aisles and stuff like that. So see the contrast between that and yesterday with the governor, like with an empty sanctuary, the security guards and us. It was mind blowing. But it's I was lucky enough when I was in Argentina that one of my teachers in the seminar, all of us have been through schools, and sometimes you have teachers that really say something to you and that sticks in your mind forever.
Yes.
And he always told me, it doesn't matter how many people are in the sanctuary or in the temple. You can have 10, you can have 400. You daven, you pray in the same way always. Because you are praying to God, you are praying on behalf of the congregation, and it has to be 100% anytime. And that's the way I try to do it.
Thank you, Elias.
Yes, you do.
So, Elisa, I seem to remember that on November the 10th, 2019, 11/10/19, you and your beloved Solomon stood together under the chuppah. And what a newlywed year, a pandemic. How is the pandemic and newlywed intersecting for you?
Yeah, so not the honeymoon period we'd imagined. It's been really interesting. I think we're adjusting. Solomon's been working fully from home. I haven't been yet. I've been mostly here.
By here, I mean like 12 hours a day here. Just to say.
Here all the time, yeah.
Yes.
But figuring out, I think what this really brings into relief for me is the energy that we're investing in home and in the world. Because one of the things that we're talking about as we're thinking about building our family is how do we balance that external energy versus internal energy. And so it's been an interesting thing for us, which is I've been totally focused externally, and Solomon has been, right, he's working from home, but he's really in our home space. And so how are we thinking about that together? And I was thinking about something that my mom actually left in my bathroom mirror when I was a kid. I started meditating when I was in high school, and I remember a time where the practice was not working, it fell out of place, and I missed a day of meditation, and I was really upset about it. My mom posted a sign on my bathroom mirror that said, the meaning of the practice is sometimes revealed in the absence of the practice. And that has felt really true for us, that the ways in which we value interacting in the world have been really revealed in this time, and also as we are in this new reality, it gives us a chance to reimagine how we want to come back.
Thank you, Lisa. My friend Dan Nessen, how are you doing during this pandemic, and what have you been thinking about?
So I think a couple of things that have really been helpful for me is that I consider myself really super lucky because I get to come in here and daven every day. And
you're next door.
And that's right, but it's a blessing to be able to come when everyone else has to be someplace else and look at a screen to be with us. I can be here in the Gantt Chapel as a beautiful place to daven, and I think that in some way, through all of this has been a lucky thing for me and for all of us in a different way.
Right.
That's one thing, sort of getting through the days, as we've said, it seems that there seems to be more and more to do every day as we try to work through how we approach this as a congregation, as congregational leaders. That's been a little bit trying because, it's still trying to keep up with the norms that are still expected. Emma's been home also. She was, the school's closed, so having Emma at home is a blessing. It actually helps me to refocus my day by knowing that I need to get home. I need to try to be home and be with her as much as possible while trying to do more and more here and trying to keep up with the demands at Hebrew College. They're still expecting everything on time.
Wow.
So that's interesting. So that's it's been a little stressful, but also a blessing.
Thank you. So I
and
think
they check in.
Rabbi, let me know. Rabbi West, would you tell us and our congregants, how are you dealing with this? How is, your situation, Shira being at home, and how do you manage life and work? Please tell us about that.
so. Two things. First of all, I asked the question. I asked the question, but I'll answer that question. Every morning I get up at 2:30, and I worry. 2:30 worry, and I'm up every night from 2:30 till 4:30 or 5. Just worried. I'm 58. We've never lived through an epic like this. But all day long, I just hear stories of hotel workers who no longer have a job, of musicians who no longer have a job, of people who work at restaurants who no longer have a job, of gig economy people, Lyft drivers who have no job, of gym owners and personal trainers who have no income. And you're just hearing people with great dignity, talk about the collapse of their lives, their livelihoods, their economies. And combined with the fact that this could be for weeks and months, I just get up at it's 2:30 in the morning and, oh my God, what's gonna be? Not to mention, that's just the economy, not to mention health and life, and the people who are getting infected and the people who are dying, not to mention to me, the true heroes. I mean, these are just the true heroes, are the doctors and the nurses and the medical professionals who have to suit up like they're an astronaut just to go into a room, and they are actually treated. We're all staying away and away and away, and they're going close, to put their own lives at risk to help others. And all of that has got me up. Once I get up, and then I make the mistake of listening to the news and NPR, and I just can't go to sleep. And I find that being here is my happiest space, because praying with people, reaching for a spiritual dimension is giving me strength. So that's what I would say. Now, but I do have a spiritual dilemma, which we're now ready to queue up. And what I want to do is queue up the dilemma and ask you for some meta thoughts on the dilemma, and then we'll look at the text. Here's the dilemma. I've always loved Pesach. Pesach was always my favorite holiday. And as all of you know, everyone does Pesach in their own way, but if you do Pesach, it's 1,000 details. It's 1,000 trips up and down the stairs to the basement. It's pots and pans and dishes. It's grocery stores. It's getting special ingredients. It's special menus. It's 1,000 dishes. And I've always loved every detail. And I've always loved every pot and every pan. And I was a Haredi on taking the kashrut of it all and getting every crumb out. And this year, I'm just totally not into it. In fact, the pots and the pans feel irrelevant to me. And the dishes feel irrelevant to me. And, cleaning all the crumbs like there are people dying. Cleaning the crumbs feels irrelevant to me. There are doctors who are jeopardizing their lives. Why do I care about pots and pans? There are people who don't have a job, who literally don't know where their next meal is coming from. So why am I worrying about special foods? So basically, here's my problem. I don't feel it for Pesach. I don't feel it for Pesach. And not only do I not feel it for Pesach, but almost feel like feeling it for Pesach is morally tone deaf. Morally tone deaf, right? And yet today is Shabbat Chodesh, which is the season when we read from Exodus about Pesach and the calendar. So I know that in the end I'm supposed to feel it for Pesach. I know in the end we are supposed to feel it from Pesach. But guys, I need help because I don't and I can't. So I'd love your wisdom. How can I feel it? How can we feel it for Pesach in a pandemic season?
So I want to say I so empathize, Wes, because not only am I feeling it now, but when, as you know, when Maya was 4, she got gravely ill. And somebody sent me an email around, she was still in the hospital, wasn't walking, and somebody sent me an email about whether green beans are kosher for Pesach. And I wanted to just slam my computer at the wall. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Green beans kosher for Pesach? Now, who cares? Who cares about this? And it took me a while to come back to a place of finding meaning in the intricate details of Pesach and the way that it came about for me, that I was able to return to finding meaning again in those details, was then in the sense of that each of these details gives us some sense of purpose and some sense of peoplehood. And that when you are feeling most lost, purpose and peoplehood most matter. And so to me, coming back into a community that cares about, maybe not green beans, but matzah versus pasta.
What's the answer? Can I eat
Right.
green beans? I hope you can. That's all I live on anyway is green beans. Tell me the answer is yes.
So matzah versus bread, it's because it's about our story. And to me, the most powerful piece of Pesach is that our people has been not literally here, but here before. We have faced the worst of history. We have faced horror. We have faced hardship. We have faced darkness.
So Michelle, we our people has, we never have.
Correct.
Right, we were the lucky ones. We were born post the Holocaust,
Correct.
post World War II. Most of us were born post Vietnam.
Yeah.
You know, and by the time we came around and the wars of our country started, it was a volunteer army. It was other people's children fighting those wars, not us, not our children. And so we were like the charmed, blessed ones. So yeah, we as a people have known hard times, but we personally have never before known hard times like
But
this.
I finally understand Chayav Adam, like that every human being has to see themselves as if they went free from Egypt. I never got that before. And now I understand that putting myself in my people's story gives me the strength to know, like, they were there. And that means if I can see myself with them, I can also see myself moving on with them to a place that someday may be filled again with some hope.
Super helpful. Thank you, Michelle. Super helpful.
So, Pesach is also my favorite holiday, in a different way that you guys are mentioning, but growing up, I was waiting the whole year for the Passover Seder for the congregation because that was my time to sing Mani Shana and other songs. So I was the David and Mikey or David and Hannah of our congregation. And so I learned to love that. And to me, the thing that I'm going to miss the most is the congregational experience of being with 300 people here, singing the beautiful melodies and praying together and sharing a meal and telling the story and retelling the story, the whole door by door, all that stuff. That's the hardest part. And I also feel it for, David and Hannah, like, they've been emailing me about 2 months ago about singing Mani Shana. Hopefully we can do something together. But, in the same way that Michelle mentioned something like that, there are words in the Haggadah that really speak to us. When we sing Halachmaniah and it says, Kol divhin yatei v'yechol, all those who are hungry come and eat and share the meal with us. There are ways of that phrase, although not in the Passover Seder, but they could come alive and help, many people like what you are doing with the congregation, bringing food to those who are in need. So the Passover Seder words really speak up. And then on my other hand, although I never experienced anything like this growing up, I experienced a lot of things in the Jewish community and horrible situations with the economy down in Argentina. And, it's a different experience as well, but never something else.
By the way, just on that line, all who are hungry and needy come and eat. I mean, first of all, it just comes alive in a new way, like a firefly with the pandemic. But it also cuts both ways. Like, number one, there's a lot more needy people. And also, we can't have them at our tables, because if you have a stranger to your table, it's dangerous for the stranger, it's dangerous for you. So it's both more need and more distance from that need, at least physically. And so it cuts both ways. Elisa, what are your thoughts for how to bring juice and energy to Pesach?
Well, I want to come back. I saw something on Facebook yesterday, which is a friend posted a picture of her brother's bags that he'd evacuated from New York with. And there was just 14, 15, 16 giant reusable grocery bags filled with canned goods and food. And her comment under that was, never lived through the Holocaust, but it feels like this is a lot, something like this is here now. And I'm just hearing in terms of, it's true that we've never physically experienced it, but I think one of the most challenging parts about this time is that all of our inherited generational PTSD trauma is being activated, and it's not just for this moment. We're actually going back to the Holocaust, we're actually going back to Egypt, and I think Passover really speaks to that trauma. It says, you're here now wherever you are, but what is alive to you is all of the experience of the generations, and you have to be free, not just in this moment, but in all moments. And so I think this year, this is a time when we all get to dial in and be really honest and really real. Those lines are problematic every year. But this year we're feeling it in a new way, and we have the opportunity to do some healing on that past trauma and on this present trauma.
Your words just so resonate. You go to Whole Foods, you go to Wegmans, you go to Trader Joe's, you go to Star Market, any grocery store, you feel like it's the 30s. You feel, it's been I would say, of all the things that are most discomforting to me, I shop at Whole Foods on Beacon Street near Crystal Lake. And when I go to Whole Foods, it just, you can say, and people are respectful. There's not brawling in the aisles, but there is edge that is palpable. There is anxiety that is palpable. There are lines that are out the window, all the time. And it felt very 30s to me, very 30s to me. And so Pesach Seder kind of just makes us confront that. Mm-hmm. Dan, what are your thoughts for juice and energy on Pesach?
Well, I want to reply partially to the way Elisa put it. The framers of the Haggadah, our rabbis, were very prescient. They really understood that this was not for the moment, but for all time. So taking the words that we oftentimes have just raced through and looking at it with the eyes that we have now, I think will add meaning. I also think, Pesach is the 100% ultimate family holiday. Family. I know you guys love the community seders. I think Pesach is the ultimate family.
But we are here with our families.
You are here with your family. The family of Temple Manuel. But I think it's a time when families can really, really, really be together. Like Thanksgiving, but up a few notches. So I think that the opportunity this year to actually do seders that might in fact be even more meaningful, even if there's just 3 people together, even if it's just 2 people, you have 2 people and the Shekhinah comes and joins you, and even if it's like 1,000 people on your Zoom Seder, I think it's an opportunity to really take it up a notch, to explore various points of the Seder that oftentimes haven't been looked at.
So
on that point,
can I say something?
Yeah.
Just to conclude this. So, we've been experiencing the same, that we do services and classes and everything. We come every day. There are empty pews here. I went to Wegmans yesterday, and that was my congregation. Every other step, Cantor, Shabbat Shalom. So all our congregants were there. I said, I don't need to come to the synagogue anymore. I can go to Wegmans. Perfect.
Next time you go, can you pick me up some green beans? So many of you were talking about how old words feel new. What I want to do now is invite everyone to take the first text that I have, which is the 10th plague, right? And I want to read it, and I just want to ask you for how you experience the 10th plague now with COVID-19. So the setup is obvious. 9 plagues never did the knockout punch for the Jews, for the Israelites, right? 9 plagues, Pharaoh always said no. You know, negotiated, you can take these, not those people, you can take those people, not these people. He never just said go already, right? The 10th plague was the knockout punch. Worse than blood, worse than frogs, worse than lice, worse than vermin, worse than locusts, worse than hail, worse than darkness. There's something about the 10th plague that delivers a knockout punch. When it happens, Pharaoh stops negotiating, take this, take that, and just says go and go quickly, okay? And I want to read this, and I want to ask you, you at home, and you hear my colleagues, what you hear in the 10th plague in view of COVID-19. In the middle of the night, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all of the firstborn of the cattle. And Pharaoh arose in the night with all his courtiers and all the Egyptians, because there was a loud cry in Egypt, for there was no house where there was not someone dead. He summoned Moses and Aaron in the night, and he said, Up! Up! Depart from among my people, you and the Israelites with you. Go! Worship the Lord as you said. Take also your flocks and your herds as you said, and be gone! And may you bring a blessing upon me also. The Egyptians urged the people on, impatient to have them leave the country, for they said, We shall all be dead. So the people took their dough before it was even leavened, their kneading bowls wrapped in their cloaks upon their shoulders. How do you read that now and hear that now and experience that now in light of COVID-19?
I would say, first of all, it's just the unfairness. You know, God killed the firstborn of Pharaoh. I get it. But the firstborn of the captive in the dungeon, I don't get it. There's, you know, what do those people do to deserve that?
Mm.
And it speaks to the randomness of death. Not actually, death is not random; it's inevitable. But the randomness of spreading of this kind of thing. So thinking about in relation to this virus, like all plagues in the past, it's random. Anyone from the king to the lowest, can die from it. So there's a certain, in a certain way, there's a certain unfairness to this, but it's also a certain reality of how the spreading of difficulties and how that affected the entire society.
Yeah. By the way, we're probably not going to have a chance to get to it, but I included in the packet this article from the Times this week, Camus on the Coronavirus by Alain de Botton. Mm-hmm. And Alain de Botton talks about Camus' book called The Plague, and the thesis of The Plague is precisely that it is completely random, and it afflicts everybody without regard to power, without regard to money, without regard to station, without regard to deserts, like you deserved it or you didn't deserve it, nobody deserved it. All humans are vulnerable, and our vulnerability is the one thing we share. The fact that you cannot purchase a solution is the one thing that we share. And that is the randomness and the vulnerability is the point of Camus' The Plague, according to Alain de Botton's piece, and that's certainly brought out here. Other reactions to the 10th plague?
One thing that feels really interesting for me about this comparison is the 10th plague biblically functions to move Pharaoh, to change the status quo, to change the reality. And so it raises the question for me about what's changing for us. Like we're now experiencing vulnerability together. There was a time where we were like, no, it's just in China. We don't have to worry about it. It's not going to affect us. Like, it's only affecting the people in China. We're safe. We're fine. It's okay. We don't have to be invested. And now that illusion has been broken, and we're confronting the reality that our lives are all interconnected. And so when someone experiences pain or hunger or challenge, it's not just their problem, it's all of our problems. And so my question becomes like, what does this plague do for us? What are we going to take from it? What is the Pharaoh that it's going to release us from?
And how would you answer your own question?
I mean, I think it really depends. It depends on whether we step up and we take the challenge to really feel our interconnectedness and to take responsibility for each other. I mean, I think that would be an ideal move, but I think it's also possible that we'll go chasing out against this wisdom, against this awareness, and bring ourselves back into a state of slavery and a state of believing that our happy lives and our happy circles are enough, and we don't have to focus on others.
I want to draw our attention to a line that never gets much attention, but it's very quick, and you could miss it if you don't focus on it. But I think it's buried in the middle of this thing is so profound, which is Pharaoh is the opposite of humility, right? I mean, the whole biblical story is a contest between the real God and Pharaoh, who thinks he's a god. And yet, at the very end, after this 10th plague, after his COVID-19, you have this note of humility. And may you bring a blessing upon me also. What do we learn from the sudden humility of the Pharaoh?
So
I think it's hard to believe that he would have said that. You know?
It's in here. I know.
But I mean,
I didn't write it. I'm reading it.
my son was killed. Just go. You know, that's not what you say to the Jewish people. You know. Anyways, I wouldn't say this is Shabbat and it's live streaming, but it's hard to believe that he would say that. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm questioning my own sources and my own tradition, but you know.
Okay.
So I found it so interesting, you know, when you read Pharaoh, you read him really angry. You read him screaming. And I think there's another read here, which is a read of pain and acceptance and just an understanding, oh my God, right? All this time I've thought that I was here and everybody else is here. I've thought that I have a special destiny and that I'm bigger. And here I am and I'm encountering my own vulnerability. And so Moses, when you go, please bless me also.
And that's probably what resonates, you know, for me among all this stuff, that in this time, you know, it's what we said before. It doesn't matter who you are.
Right. Vulnerability is something we'll all share. I want to if you turn to the next page, I know we're coming up to Pesach. But I wanted to bring up Unatana Tokef, because
Rosh Hashanah is in 3-4 years.
Yes, Rosh Hashanah. Yeah. Rosh Hashanah is 6 months from now, but these words are today. On page 2, how many will pass on and how many will be born? Who will live and who will die? Who will live a long life and who will come to an untimely end? And then it lists a number of ways that we can perish. The last of them is, who will perish, who by plague, umi v'magefa. And I have to confess, I lived my whole life and I prayed this prayer 1,000,000 times, and I never thought about magefa. It was like, it just never registered, it never landed, plague, what is it? And now, like, oh my God, it's the heart of this whole thing. What are your thoughts about Unatana Tokef and who by plague?
So, you know, as I mentioned this many times, this is my favorite prayer in the whole High Holiday liturgy, and singing in synagogue at the early age, this was the prayer that my dad loved the most, and he loved hearing me singing this, you know, when I was a teen and leading congregation. And, you know, when you are growing up and you grow up and you start looking at different prayers with different pair of eyes, and this is one, and, you know, this prayer is unbelievable. It's like every year brings something different. Remember, we were talking last year about Mibaesh, when there were so many fires in California, and that was the line that stood up, and now there's this. It's unbelievable, the power of this prayer. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, like, when you sing, I don't have the right words because I'm not a music person, but sometimes you sing with a louder voice, and sometimes you sing with a softer voice, and you alternate louder and softer, even in this prayer. How have you sung these lines in the past?
So, you know, it depends of what the intensity of, it's hard, but this is probably the interpretation of the different cantors, how they do it. I want to bring alive the words that I'm saying. You was just reading about Pharaoh, and you say, "Go, just go," and you have some good acting skills. So I try to bring that to prayer when I'm doing it as well, and applying that to the text and magnify. It's one of those words, as you said, that doesn't speak to us now. Amazing.
So I'm from California, so normally it's the Aish and the Ra'ada, like the fire and the earthquake are what really grab me and have always grabbed me, because that was a reality of my life. Plague, as you say, was never a reality of life. But I'm also mindful of this pair that comes a little bit later about who will be tranquil and who will be tormented. And the question, what are we going to do with all of this? Right? We're facing this reality that none of us knows. How are you going to die? Where are you going to die? What's going to pursue you in your life or in your time? But the question is, what will we do with it? Will we carry this around for us always as a source of great destruction? Or will we be able to leverage this into a place where we can build upon it? And I want to go back to the Pharaoh story in that way, because Pharaoh, in that moment of blessing that you pull out, you can almost see this acceptance, this sense of, wow, I'm part of something bigger. I'm not just above it. And then moments later, the next time we see Pharaoh, he's off trying to gain the power back again.
Right.
And I think that's a real risk to us at this time. Are we going to be Pharaoh and just rush right back in
To our old patterns.
to our, or even more destructive patterns than what we've
Right.
had before?
Wow, thank you. Elisa, Dan, any thoughts on intertwined Tokyo?
Always.
Well, let me pivot for a second, because I'm, to me, the last line here, of course, to all of us, the last line here is the power of this whole prayer, which is the response, Tshuva, Tefillah, Tzedakah, Ma'avir, and Roa, Hagazerah. What does this classic line say to us now in the season of the pandemic, Elisa?
In some ways, it feels like tshuva is literally returning, turning, and this feels really real to me in the way that we are all now turning towards our screens, towards each other. That it's like the texts that come in the Talmud and Mishnah about all of Israel turning in a circle around the world towards Jerusalem, and it feels like in this day and age we're all turning and returning towards our community. I kind of imagine the lights of screens from around the country, around our community, all turning towards our center here at Temple Emmanuel, and our prayers together. And I really do feel that the tzedakah that we're doing as a congregation, the turning about just building connections, about calling each other, about making sure that everybody's okay, about reaching out.
Can you say more about that? Because I don't know that if everybody knows at home about that, and you've been spearheading that project.
Yeah, so our hope is that every single member of the congregation will receive a call during this time that will just be a call to check in and see how people are doing in the way that we've been checking in with each other. And I know that there are those that are already checking in. We are starting at the eldest of the community, and we're working our way down to the youngest, figuring that the elders in the community need support with technological things, getting onto things, and the younger people in the community are going to need support as the weeks go on, when all the kids are home and when they're still being alone in their homes. And it's been amazing. We have over 200 people that are making calls now. We would love to add you to the list if you want to join us in these calls. They're really powerful, and I've just been blown away. I get all the emails back about the conversations, and people have just been sharing beautiful stories of connection, of, I actually didn't know this, but we went to a school together, and actually didn't know this, but actually they were my babysitter, and actually all these powerful moments of connection. And it feels like for people to be meeting each other when they're housebound, when they can't actually make connection, that's lessening the harshness of the decree, and that will enable us to come back stronger.
Wes, the one thing that to me, the word that resonates the most here is tefillah, because this is what we do. This is how we know how to do the best. But in this time, it becomes so important how much of this resonates with our congregation. I mean, it's funny to hear that we have more people online watching us than we have in real services here when they attend. But you know, it's amazing how all the support that we've been getting, and we want to thank all of you for this. You know, how much, you know, the comments about, oh, thank you for doing this. This is the best part of my day, hearing you guys praying and talking and doing teaching. So the tefillah comes really alive in these times.
Wow. So I want to just kind of bring this to a close and come back to our question about how do we find juice and energy for Pesach when we're not feeling it for Pesach. I want to come back and just read one paragraph from the Coronavirus Camus piece written by Elaine de Botton. It's on page 4 of it. And it's going to be, I'm going to read from 4 paragraphs up, okay? At the height of the contagion, when 500 people a week are dying, a Catholic priest called Penelou gives a sermon that explains the plague is God's punishment for depravity. But Dr. Roux has watched a child die and knows better. Suffering is randomly distributed. It makes no sense. It is simply absurd. And that is the kindest thing one can say of it. The doctor works tirelessly to lessen the suffering of those around him, but he is no hero. The whole thing is not about heroism, Dr. Roux says. It may seem a ridiculous idea, but the only way to fight the plague is with decency. Another character asks what decency is. Doing my job, the doctor replies. So I want to just kind of give you my own answer for the question about Pesach and why a Pesach Seder matters. I mean, all of you have shared your own different answers, but to me, the purpose of faith and prayer, the praying that we do now, the praying that we do this morning, and the Pesach Seder, is to get my most decent self out there in the world. That in other words, I could be the 2:30 me, 2:30 in the morning me, which is contracted and worrying and hyperventilating and just focused on end of days scenarios. And that helps nobody, beginning with, doesn't help me, doesn't help my family, doesn't help the shul, doesn't help anybody, right? And how do I move from the 2:30 worry to something that's positive and productive and constructive? How do I move from, to, okay, wait a minute, there's something we can do. What can we do about this? And decency takes work. Decency is not a default. Decency is something that is intentional. And the purpose of the Seder is to bring out our decency. You know, as a result of all these rituals, and we encounter the words that we never saw before that now come alive, we have conversations, hopefully our most decent self comes out. Here's how I'd like to end this session. One of the lines that we say every morning is Eloheinu Shemashna Taka B'Tahorahi. The soul that God has given me is pure. May our upcoming Passover holiday bring out our best and purest soul. Eloheinu Shema.
Elohai, Elohai,
Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.